Hey there neighbors, welcome back to the channel. This is Anarchy in the 603, and you are back for yet another postcard from your friendly neighborhood anarchist. Absolutely nobody's favorite, D-tier production quality, lightly edited dispatch from wherever I happen to be sitting to wherever you are right now. Currently by the riverside, somewhere in not so sunny New Hampshire. And I was in the comments section hanging out over at the Knitting Cult Ladies channel. If you haven't checked her out yet, former Captain Mestanek at Knitting Cult Lady. She is very knowledgeable and has a great way of putting into words a lot of stuff that kind of kicks around upstairs in my head. But I was in the comments section there talking, and something that she had said was resonating with me about how freaking out about everything that's going on is a very privileged stance because we're still able to freak out. Now, mind you, former Captain Mestanek, she was a survivor of the Children of God cult, and then eventually became a U.S. Army captain after deconstructing from her religion, or while in process of deconstructing from her religious faith. Anyway, having grown up in dictatorship Brazil, she's got a lot of insight that I think a lot of folks around here may not. And that actually made me think about my own experience growing up. And I just want to sit and talk about that for a minute. See, one of the things about me that's very much a part of my upbringing is the fact that I'm an immigrant kid, right? I'm an immigrant kid. My mom is from the Philippines. She was born in 1943. And that's, of course, right at the height of the Second World War. And I don't know how much you know about the Philippines' involvement in World War II. But let's just say that in the last 600 years, there's never been a good time to have been born Filipino. But 1943 was probably one of the worst times. By the end of the war, there was literally nobody on the islands that had not been touched by some sort of brutality. You know, everyone had a relative that had been assaulted, murdered, brutalized. SA was rampant, infanticide was rampant. I mean, just horrible, horrible brutalities. And then after the post-war period, when their dictator, Ferdinand Marcos, came into power for the next several decades, things didn't get better. My grandparents came to this country after years of my mother petitioning, from basically the moment that she got here to the U.S., started petitioning for her parents to come here. And it wasn't till I was 8 that they arrived. And it wasn't maybe a year or two later that we were glued to the television watching the national news coverage, or international news coverage, I should say, of the Philippine People Power Revolution unfolding on cameras right before our very eyes. Now, mind you, I grew up on stories of what it was like growing up in post-war Philippines. And I don't want to shame anybody. By no means do I. And by no means do I want to diminish what is going on, because everything that's happening right now is every bit as bad as you think. Worse even than most of us think. However, all that being said, you guys, it could be so much worse. Like, I don't know if you understand. Like, yes, the media is bought and paid for by corporations. You know, all major media is owned by corporations. It's rare that you can find a major media organization that's willing to actually speak truth to power about what's going on. And even then, it's a lot of language where they're sidestepping the gravity of what's happening. But when my mom was growing up, like, it was complete state repression. Like, you couldn't protest in the streets. There was no YouTube. You couldn't just post your voice of dissent for the public to hear on a channel like this, not without fear of getting disappeared. Now, mind you, yeah, there are people right now, green card holders right now, that are getting disappeared. Like there's a German citizen, a New Hampshire resident, who I mentioned in a short recently, a couple of weeks ago now, was coming back from Luxembourg on a trip to visit family, and he got taken by ICE, and he's been detained. He's been allegedly tortured. Let's be real. I don't know why they're using enhanced interrogation tactics on a legal U.S. green card holder, but here we are. But right now, I myself, a citizen who was born here, raised here, my father was a U.S. citizen, we got roots all the way back in this country, hundreds of years, and I've got indigenous roots on my dad's side as well. Like, they ain't getting rid of me. And I can still say what I want to say, and private citizens can still say what they want to say. And that's the thing. It could be so much worse than it is. The People Power Revolution sparked off because the first potentially real democratic president, the leader in the elections that year, that even though Ferdinand Marcos was literally buying votes, buying out entire ballot boxes, it didn't matter because Benigno Aquino was so popular that there was no, and he was very much going for on the platform of reform, of stopping the martial law, of stopping the brutality. And what happened to him? He steps off a plane at the airport in Manila, which is now the Benigno Aquino Airport, if I know correctly. And right there in broad daylight, he was gunned down and assassinated by Ferdinand Marcos's hitmen. And that was when the people finally said, enough is enough. Like, that's how bad it got there. I'm talking like, to this day, the wealth disparity there is so much so that you have an entire city of people outside of Manila living in the island's largest landfill. It's called Garbage Mountain. And there are people that have a shanty town built there. And they live off of the rest of the country's garbage, repurposing it for their homes, fixing it up and reselling it, doing whatever they can with the trash that people throw away. While wealthy people in the cities and outside, the wealthier suburbs, live in massive compounds of like several houses on tons of land surrounded by these 12-foot cement fences with broken glass, like broken bottles embedded into the cement, along with razor wire all along the top of the fences. As wild and disparate as things are here, as large of a gap as there is between the haves and the have-nots here in this country, we can still pretend that things are kind of normal. The middle class can still pretend or tell themselves that they're not struggling as much as they are. Like, what I'm saying is, and I'm not saying this to tell people to calm down, I'm not saying this to say that we're not in the middle of a fascist takeover, because we are. But the fact remains that we still have the power to fight, we still have the power to resist, we still have the power within us to make this stop. Like, just the other day in Colorado, Bernie Sanders and AOC stood in front of a crowd of 30,000 people. 30,000 people to protest the oligarchical takeover that's happening in our country. Now, I live in a state where we are only 1.5 million people total. Can you imagine if 30,000 of us got out into the streets right now to protest what is going on? We have power. We have a voice. We have the ability to not storm the Capitol and riot and raid, but to protest and organize and make our voices heard collectively, to stand up against this power, to make our senators and our congressmen and women actually do their job. Because trust me, guys, red state, blue state, it doesn't matter. They could stop this right now if they want to. If they didn't want to be cowards, if they didn't want to be complicit, they could stop, and they could just say, you know what, this is wrong. We are a country that lives off the rule of law. You know, enough of this. Surely someone will stop it. I guess today my name is Surely or Shirley or whatever. Anyway, what I'm saying is, don't let the way things are right now get you hopeless and beaten down. Not yet. Don't stop, because even if it gets worse, and by God I hope it doesn't, but even if it does, we will still have power. This is not the first time that we have had a dictatorial president. Trust me, it's happened in the past. It's just happened over 100 years ago, so people forget how bad it was. And this is not the first time that any country has ever seen a dictatorial takeover. Many other countries have gone under the hand of a dictator and come out the other side, and I know that we can too. But we have to get together. We have to organize. We have to just, okay, let yourself go stand in your closet, scream into a pillow, have your freak out, and then call your legislators. Then call your friends who are equally fucking freaked out about this. Go online. Go to your local Reddits. Find out where your next protest is going to be. Go to your local coffee shop or your library or something. Find out where there are like-minded people there that you can meet and get together and talk about this kind of stuff. Because that's part of the thing. They want to take away our third spaces so that we can't get together and talk about this shit. But if we force the time to happen, if we force the space to be made, if we say no, we're not going to just quietly shuffle off, we can stop this. Anyway, my hands are getting cold. I gotta take some time to edit this, and I know my phone's getting low on battery. Currently knitting another hat. I finished my 4th hat already of the last couple of weeks. This one's in some Malabrigo. Can't tell if you can see the colorway from here, so I'm going to bring it in close. There you go. Got a bit of that nice rich color. And anyway, have a great day, neighbors. Y'all take care. This is Anarchy in the 603 for now. I am out.